Hello, my friend. Welcome to your sleep story. My name is Stephen Dalton. I'm an Irish storyteller, and it's my great privilege to be the voice that you listen to as you go to sleep tonight. Tonight, I'm starting a new series, one in which I imagine that I am a person from the past, a traveler, if you will, and I'm telling you a story of a particular point in my life. Tonight, the traveler, or me, will tell you about a time in 19th century China when I spent a lot of time with a tea master who not only taught me about tea, but also some very important lessons on life, in particular, the difference between a great and a good life, and which is better. But first, let's do the relaxation session, which will take a few minutes before tonight's sleep story. I'm going to count down from 10 to 1, and as I do, allow yourself to let go more and more. 10. Feel the support of the bed beneath you, or the floor, or whatever you lie upon tonight. And beneath what you lie upon, feel a deeper support, the support of the earth, our home, our constant support. And as you become aware of that support, see if you can sink into this moment a little more now. Just let go. A little more now. 9. You are safe. Allow my voice to be an anchor of safety tonight, to be a friend, to be a gentle guide, a guide that only ever brings you to safe places, to warm and cozy places, to places that enable and support your sleep. Trust that my voice is a friend tonight. Eight. Feel into your body now. Notice where you might still be holding tonight. Notice where you may have pain or tingling or tension. Notice anything. Maybe you feel something in your feet or in your lower legs or your thighs or your belly, your chest, shoulders, your neck, your back, maybe you're like me and you hold tension in your face. Just see if you can soften a little now. This is a time for kindness to yourself and to your body. Seven. The day is done. Whatever has been, has been. Whatever will be, will be. But right now, all you have is this moment. Your thoughts can't change what has gone before. Your thoughts can't change what will come tomorrow. Your brain needs rest now. So, as thoughts come and go now, don't fight them. Don't chase them away. See them for what they are. Thoughts. Then just watch them go, like leaves floating away on a moonlit river, or clouds passing through a starlit sky. Six. This is your moment. This is your time. You have earned this moment of kindness to yourself. You deserve to have peace in your life. We all do. So, as you become aware of that fact, as you come to the understanding that we all deserve peace, see if you can settle into this moment a little more now, letting your body know that it's really time for rest. Five. Peace lives within you. It is a constant friend, waiting to be found, waiting to be felt. Where does it live within you? Maybe it's in your heart. Maybe it's in your head. It's up to you to find it. But I promise you it's there. Four. Perhaps allow a little gratitude now. Gratitude for the simple things, for your body, for the shelter you have tonight, for the ones you love and who love you, for the beauty and wonder of this world, of this planet, that you can find when you look for it. Three, begin to engage with your imagination now. Begin to see a beautiful old tea house sitting by a lake in 19th century China. 2. Checking in with your body one more time now. Finding the places you are holding still. And allowing yourself to give in, to allow the tension to ease away. Your body has worked hard for you today. It's time to give it rest. And 1. Completely letting go now. As I tell you tonight's sleep story. It is a curious thing how a place will seize hold of a man and refuse to let him go. I have travelled, in my time, through a good many countries and a good many cities, and most of them have left only the lightest marks on me, the sort of mark one might expect from a casual acquaintance, a pleasant enough memory, a dish one would like to taste again, a view from a particular window one sees sometimes at the edge of sleep. But there is a city in the east of China, on the shore of a lake called the West Lake, and its name is Hangzhou. And though I have not been there for many years, I think about it still, often in the quiet hour before dinner, when the fire has been lit and the lamps have been drawn low, and there is nothing to do but remember. It was in Hangzhou one autumn, a very long time ago now, that I met a man named Master Wen, who was by profession a maker and pourer of tea, and who taught me, without ever setting out to teach me anything, a great deal about the matter of being alive. The year was the 4th year of the reign of the Jiaoqing Emperor, which is to say early in the 19th century, by our Western reckoning, and I had come down to Hangzhou from the north, travelling on the canal boats in a leisurely fashion, stopping where I pleased. I was a young man then, I had been in China for some years on business, which need not detain us, and I had grown fond of the country and its people, and I had learned enough of the language to converse, though not enough to argue, which in China, as in every other part of the world, is the surer test. I had heard of Hangzhou as a city of poets, of lake views, of silk and tea, and I wished to see it for myself. I arrived at dusk, on an evening in the 9th month of the year, when the chrysanthemums were opening in every garden, and the lake was the colour of an old coin. I took a room at an inn near the Sioux Causeway, where the willows trail their branches in the water, and I sat on the wooden balcony of my room and watched the lamps being lit on the boats out on the lake, and I ate a bowl of noodles, and I drank a small cup of yellow wine, and I felt that peculiar happiness of a man who has arrived in a strange city after a long journey and has no particular plan for the next day. The lake, in the soft darkness that came on as I sat there, had the quality of something remembered rather than seen. Small pleasure boats drifted back and forth, with paper lanterns hanging from their sterns, and the sound of their oars was a slow, regular slap of wood on water. Further off, on an island in the middle of the lake, a pagoda rose up, dark against the sky, with one single lamp burning at its top, like a star caught in a net. A woman was singing somewhere, on one of the boats perhaps, or in one of the houses on the shore. And though I could not understand the words of her song, I understood very well the feeling of it, which was the feeling of a city that has lived a long time beside a beautiful body of water, and has grown, over the centuries, a particular way of feeling about itself. Hangzhou was such a city. I felt, as I sat on the balcony that evening, that I had come to a place where men and women had been watching the same lake and singing the same songs and drinking the same yellow wine for 1,000 years and more. It was, in its way, a consoling thought. For the first 2 days, I wandered the city as a visitor will. I walked the length of the Sioux Causeway from end to end. I crossed the arched stone bridges, and I stood on the bridges and looked at the lotus leaves floating on the water, and at the small turtles sunning themselves on the stones. I visited one or two of the temples, where the smoke of incense drifted between the wooden pillars, and the monks chanted in their low, rumbling voices. I bought a fan from a fan maker and a small inkstone from an old man who had been cutting inkstones for 40 years, and I ate dumplings in a shop that had been in the same family since the Ming dynasty, or so the proprietor told me, and who am I to say it was not so? I would not, I think, ever have met Master Wen had it not been for the rain. It began on my third morning in the city, when I was walking along the causeway. It came on suddenly, as rain in that part of China will, with no preliminary drizzle, no warning grey in the sky. Just all at once, a great soft curtain of water falling from the clouds, so thick that I could barely see the lake 10 paces in front of me. I turned and hurried back towards the city, but I had come further than I thought, and by the time I reached the edge of the lake, I was soaked through. I took shelter under the eaves of the nearest building, which I saw when I looked up was a small teahouse of the old sort, built of dark wood, with a paper lantern hanging by the door, and an inscription carved into the lintel, which I could not quite make out in the rain. A voice said, in Chinese, from inside, "Please come in, out of the wet." I stepped through the doorway and into a room that is still, after all these years, very clear in my memory. It was not large. The floor was of dark planks, worn smooth by the passage of many feet over many years. There were perhaps 6 low tables, each with cushions around it instead of chairs, and at the far end of the room there was a raised platform on which stood a small brazier with a kettle on it, and beside the brazier sat a man of perhaps 60 years of age, cross-legged, his hands resting on his knees, looking at me with calm black eyes. He was slender, his hair was grey, pulled back into a simple knot. He wore a plain robe of dark blue cotton, not silk, and his face had the composed stillness that I have sometimes seen in Buddhist monks, and sometimes in very good doctors, but rarely in other men. You are wet, he observed, without any particular urgency. I am. The rain in Hangzhou does not give notice, he said. Please, sit by the fire. I will bring you tea. I sat on one of the cushions near the brazier. The coals glowed a deep cherry red, and I felt the warmth of them creeping back into my cold hands, and I heard the soft ticking sound of the water in the kettle beginning to stir. Master Wen, for this, though I did not yet know his name, was the man, moved very slowly and very precisely about his preparations. He took a small clay teapot from a shelf. He rinsed it out with hot water. He took a handful of tea leaves from a tin and smelled them quite openly and with evident pleasure, and then he placed them in the pot. He poured the hot water, not quite boiling, over the leaves. He replaced the lid. He poured, in a little while, from the pot into 2 small cups. He handed one cup to me with both hands and kept the other for himself. Drink, he said. I drank. The tea was green and pale and quite hot, and it had a taste I could not at first place, something of flowers, something of fresh rain on leaves, something of the very faint bitterness that marks the best teas of the region. I said so, in my halting way, and Master Wen smiled. It is from a bush, he said, that grows about a mile from here, on the slope of a hill above the lake. I know the bush. I have known it for 42 years. Its tea changes a little with every season. This year, it is a little sweeter than last year, because the spring was dry. You know the bush, I said. I know the bush, he said, as a man knows his wife. Each has a nature, each has moods, each rewards attention. I stayed in that tea house for 3 hours. The rain did not let up. It went on falling in its heavy, soft way on the lake and on the willows and on the roof of the tea house, and I was in no hurry to leave. Master Wen and I talked a little. He asked me where I was from, and where I had been, and what I thought of Hangzhou. I asked him about the teahouse and about his life, and he answered me simply, without reserve, but also without any great flow of detail. He had been born in the city. His father had been a tea master before him. He had no wife now. His wife had died some years earlier. He had one son, who was a clerk in the government offices in the provincial capital, and who wrote to him every month. He did not, I gathered, expect very much from his son, nor did he expect very little. His son was what he was. When at last I rose to leave, I asked him what I owed him for the tea. "Nothing," he said. "I insist. You may come back tomorrow, if you like, and bring a small gift. That will do." I came back the next evening, and the evening after that, and by the end of my first week in Hangzhou, I had taken to spending every evening in Master Wen's teahouse. It was a small, unsought friendship, of the sort that sometimes develops between men of different generations and different countries when they find that they like each other's silences. I would come in at dusk, when the lamps were being lit along the causeway, and I would sit by the brazier, and Master Wen would make tea for me, and we would talk a little, and we would be silent a great deal. And the evenings would go by in a way that I have rarely known evenings to go by, either before or since, with a sort of deep, unhurried sweetness, as though time had thickened and was willing to linger. I learned, during those evenings, a good many things about tea, though Master Wen did not set out to teach me, and I did not set out to learn. I learned that there are hundreds of kinds of tea in China, and that to a tea master, each one is as distinct as a human face. I learned that the water matters almost as much as the leaf, and that the best water comes from a particular spring in the hills above Hangzhou, and that Master Wen walked up to that spring every third day with 2 wooden buckets on a shoulder pole, though he was no longer a young man. because he said that the tea made from that water was not the same as the tea made from other water, and that any fool could tell the difference if he paid attention. I learned that the shape of the cup matters, and the temperature of the water matters, and the age of the pot matters, and the length of time the leaves are left to steep matters, and the order in which these things are done matters. I learned that tea making, done properly, is not a matter of following a recipe. It is a matter of being fully present at each moment of the process, so that one responds to what is actually happening, to the exact way the steam is rising, to the exact color of the brew, to the exact sound the water makes as it pours, rather than to what one has decided in advance will happen. "If you are thinking about something else," said Master Wen one evening, "the tea will know, and it will not give you its best." Does the tea know? The tea knows everything. It is the drinker who is unaware. I was not sure whether he was speaking seriously or whether he was making a gentle joke, and I have never been entirely sure. In my experience, men who have given their lives to a single craft tend to speak about it in that double way, half seriously and half with a slight smile, as though they know things that cannot be said straight out. One morning, towards the end of my first week in Hangzhou, Master Wen asked me if I should like to see the bush. The bush? The bush from which comes the tea that you have been drinking. I said that I would like that very much. And so, quite early the next morning, before the sun had properly risen above the hills, I walked down to the teahouse and met Master Wen at his door. He was carrying a shoulder pole with 2 wooden buckets hanging from it, and he was wearing a conical straw hat against the dew, and he looked, in his plain dark robe and his straw hat, like a figure out of a woodblock print. "Before we see the bush," he said, "we must fetch the water. They are not far apart." We walked out of the city on a small path that I had not known was there, up through a grove of bamboo, and we heard the leaves rustling in the morning breeze, past a shrine where someone had left a bowl of rice and a stick of incense for a local spirit, and up a long, slow slope into the hills. The path was steeper than it looked. Master Wen walked with the easy, rhythmic step of a man who has walked a particular path 1,000 times. And though he was 40 years older than I was, I had to work to keep up with him. After perhaps half an hour, we came to a small stone basin set against a mossy rock face. A spring trickled out of the rock into the basin, very clear, very cold, with a thin white vein of foam where it struck the water. Master Wen set down his buckets. He dipped one into the basin and filled it, and then the other, and he tied them back onto the pole. He did this without hurry. He did not look at me while he did it. He was giving the work his whole attention, as though the filling of 2 buckets from a spring were a ceremony in which nothing should be done carelessly or without respect. "Taste it," he said, when the buckets were full. I knelt down and cupped my hand in the basin and drank. The water was so cold it made my teeth ache. It had a thin, clean, mineral taste that I had never tasted in any water before and have not tasted since. "You understand," said Master Wen, "why I come here?" "I understand," I said. We went on further up the path, with the buckets swinging gently from his pole, and after another 10 minutes, the path opened out onto a small terrace cut into the hillside. The terrace was planted with tea bushes, perhaps 100 of them, arranged in long rows, each bush no higher than a man's waist, each one a dark, dense, green cushion of leaves. The morning sun had just begun to reach the terrace, and the dew on the leaves made the whole hillside seem to be faintly sparkling. "That one," said Master Wen, pointing with his free hand. He pointed to a bush at the end of the 3rd row. It looked, to my eye, exactly like all the other bushes. Master Wen set down his buckets, and we walked across to it. He put his hand very gently on top of the bush, as a man might put his hand on the head of a child. "This is my friend," he said. He did not say it sentimentally. He said it as a simple statement of fact. The bush was his friend. I stood there and looked at the bush, and I tried to see what he saw in it, and I could not. But I understood that he saw something, and that his seeing was the fruit of 42 years of attention, and that no amount of my looking at the bush for 5 minutes was going to give me what he had. We walked back down to the city with the 2 full buckets, and Master Wen did not speak on the way down, and I did not speak either, because it seemed to me that the morning had been, in some way I could not have explained, a sacred morning, and that words would have spoiled it. On the 12th evening of my acquaintance with Master Wen, there was a storm over the lake. It began after sundown, when I had already made my way down to the teahouse and had taken my accustomed seat by the brazier. The wind came up first, rattling the paper windows and making the lanterns swing on their hooks. And then the rain began, drumming on the roof, and then the thunder, rolling in long, slow waves across the water from the hills beyond the lake. I remember thinking that it was the kind of storm that makes a man glad of a fire and a cup of something hot and the company of a friend. Master Wen was setting out the cups. The brazier was burning more brightly than usual, because he had added a few extra pieces of charcoal against the chill, and the fire gave off a soft, crackling sound under the thunder, and the teahouse was filled with its warm, red light. "Tonight," said Master Wen, "I will make for you a particular tea. I have not made it for anyone in many years. I think perhaps tonight is the right night for it. What is the tea? It is called the last tea of the year. It is made from leaves picked in the final week of the harvest, when the bush is nearly asleep for the winter. The leaves are few, and they are small, and they are a little bitter, but they have in them the whole of the summer. Everything the bush has learned during the warm months, it puts into those last leaves. It is the tea of memory." He took down a small black tin from a shelf above the brazier. He opened it, and he held it out to me, so that I could see the leaves inside, curled and dark and smell them. The smell of wood smoke and of something else, some dry, sweet vegetable smell that I cannot describe better than that. He prepared the tea with more than his usual care. He warmed the pot twice. He measured the leaves by hand, not with the small wooden scoop he usually used. He poured the water in a slow spiral. He waited, watching the pot for a precisely judged length of time. And then he poured into 2 small cups that I had not seen him use before. Cups of a very old, very pale porcelain, glazed the color of a winter sky. He handed one to me with both hands, and I took it with both hands, as he had taught me. We drank in silence. The thunder rolled outside. The fire crackled in the brazier. The tea was, I must say, the finest I have ever tasted in my life, before or since. I will not try to describe its flavor. Some things are beyond the reach of ordinary words, and this tea was one of them. What I will say is that it tasted, more than anything else, like a memory. Like the memory of a summer that one had almost forgotten, and that was being returned to one intact by a kindly hand. When I had drunk the cup, I set it down, and I was silent for a long time. Master Wen did not disturb me. He sat opposite me, with his own cup empty in his hands, and he watched the fire. "Master Wen," I said at last, "why did you give me this tea?" He was quiet for a time. Then he said, "Because you are going away." "I am not going anywhere. I intend to stay in Hangzhou through the winter." "You are going away," he said again, gently. "Not tomorrow, not next week, but before the end of this month, you will go. A letter will come for you, or a message. You will have to leave." "How do you know this?" "I do not know it. I feel it. In this city, as one grows older, one learns to feel such things. People come and go, One knows after a while which of them are going soon. You are going soon. I would have argued, but something in his face stopped me, and as it turned out, he was right. 3 days later, a letter reached me from Shanghai, requiring me to return there at once on a matter of business that would not wait. I stayed in Hangzhou a further week only, settling my affairs and saying my goodbyes. And then I went. But that is not what I want to tell you about. What I want to tell you about is a conversation that Master Wen and I had on that stormy evening, after the tea had been drunk, and the fire was burning, and the thunder was moving outside. I had asked him, I think out of a kind of sleepy contentment, what he had done with his life. It was a forward question, but the tea and the warmth and the lateness of the hour had made me forward. He did not seem to mind. He thought for a while. Then he said, I have made tea. Only that? Is it such a small thing, do you think? I do not know. I suppose, in the scale of a human life, it seems modest. Perhaps, he said. Perhaps. Let me tell you a story. And he settled himself a little more comfortably on his cushion, and he refilled our cups with plain water from a jug, and he began. When I was a young man, he said, I was apprenticed to my father, who was, as I have told you, a tea master before me. He was a very good tea master, perhaps better than I am, though he was a hard man to live with, hard and silent, and often disappointed. I began to learn from him when I was 7 years old, and for many years I resented the work. I wanted to be a soldier, or a poet, or a scholar who sat for the imperial examinations. I wanted to do something large and important in the world. Making tea, it seemed to me, was for small men who had no ambitions. When I was 18, I ran away. I went to the provincial capital, and I tried to sit for the examinations, though I was not well prepared, and I failed them. Then I tried to join the army, but they would not have me because I was thin and could not ride a horse. Then I tried to become a poet, but I had no talent for it, and my poems were bad. By the time I was 20, I had come home again, with my tail between my legs, and my father had taken me back into the teahouse without a single word of reproach, which was worse than if he had beaten me. For the next 10 years, I made tea, and I hated it, and I made it badly, because you cannot do anything well if you hate it. My father said nothing. He poured his own tea and did not comment on mine. Gradually, because I had no choice, because there was nothing else for me to do, I began to pay attention. I paid attention to the water. I paid attention to the leaves. I paid attention to the fire. I paid attention to the cups. I paid attention, at last, to the drinkers, to the expressions on their faces when they took the first sip, to the small movements of their hands, to the silences they fell into when the tea was good. And a strange thing happened. The better I became at paying attention, the more I found in the work. There was no end to it. A cup of tea is a small thing, but it is not a simple thing. Every cup is different. Every cup has 1,000 small decisions behind it. Every cup is a little world. By the time I was 40, I was as good a tea master as my father, and he told me so once, in his way, by saying nothing when I poured for an important visitor. By the time I was 50, I was perhaps a little better than he had been, and he knew this too, and it pleased him, although he would not have said so. And by the time I was 60, which I am now, I understood, at last, what it is that I have been doing all these years. I have been making tea. That is all. I have been making tea for men and women who come in out of the rain, or who come in out of the sun, or who come in out of some trouble that has followed them through the streets. They sit down. I give them tea. They drink. And for a little while, because the tea is made properly, because the water is right and the leaves are right and the fire is right, and because I have paid attention, they forget whatever it was that was troubling them. They remember that they are alive. They remember that it is pleasant to be alive. And then they get up and they pay me or they do not. And they go out again into the street, and they forget about me mostly. But the tea stays with them a little. It is inside them, and it does its work inside them, quietly, for the rest of the day. And some of them, who come back often, are changed by the tea over time, though they do not know they are changed. That is what I have done with my life. I have sat in this small room, and I have poured out small cups of hot water with leaves in them, and I have changed, very slightly, the lives of a good number of people. I did not build anything large. I did not write anything important. I did not win any wars. But I have done this, and I think now that it has been enough. I think that it has been a good life. I did not answer him straight away. Eventually, I said, "Master Wen, I think it has been a very good life. It has not been a great life," he said, "but I have come to believe that there is a difference between a great life and a good life, and that a good life is the better of the two." "What is the difference?" "A great life is one that is noticed. A good life is one that is lived. Most men want the first because they are young, and young men want to be noticed, and they suppose that a great life will make them happy. But by the time one has grown old, one has seen enough of great men to know that many of them were not happy, and that most of them did not live good lives because the greatness took up all the room, and there was no space left over for the living. A good life is lived quietly, in a small place, with attention. It is made up of small things done carefully over a long period of time. It leaves almost no trace, but the people who have been near it have been helped by it, and the man who has lived it has been pleased to live it, and that is enough. That is enough for anybody." He smiled. "Drink your tea," he said, though there was no more tea in my cup. "Drink your tea while it is warm." not tire you with the rest of my stay in Hangzhou, nor with the circumstances of my leaving. I left, as Master Wen had said I would, and I returned to Shanghai. And in time, I returned to Ireland, and in the course of a long life, I have done a number of things, and been to a number of places, and met a number of people, and I have forgotten most of them. But I have not forgotten Master Wen. I have not forgotten the sound of the rain on the roof of his teahouse, and the soft crackling of the charcoal in his brazier, and the small pale cup of tea he handed me with both hands on the evening of the storm. I have not forgotten what he said about the difference between a great life and a good life. In the years since, I have watched a number of men pursue greatness at enormous cost to themselves and to the people around them. And I have watched a few men live quiet, attentive lives, and I have come to believe that Master Wen was right. Master Wen, I learned many years later, died peacefully in his teahouse at the age of 78. A young apprentice of his, who had been with him for the last 15 years of his life, found him one morning seated in his usual place by the brazier, with the kettle warm and the teapot filled and 2 small cups set out, as though he had been expecting a visitor. The apprentice, who had a feeling that perhaps he knew who the expected visitor might be, sat down opposite his master and poured the tea and drank his own cup and let the other cup grow cold. Then he washed the cups carefully and put them away and went to fetch the undertaker. The tea house is still there, I am told, on the shore of the West Lake, though it is run by other people now, and I dare say the tea is not quite what it was. It is very late. The fire has burned down, and it continues to make that soft popping sound. The rain still falls outside. I think of Master Wen often at this time of night. I think of the long, slow evenings in his tea house, and of the way he sat by his brazier, and of the way he poured the water in its slow spiral into the pot. I think of his small, pale cups. I think of his gentle voice and of his steady black eyes, and of the particular stillness that seemed to live in the air around him. I think that he is still somewhere, sitting by a fire with a kettle on it, making tea. And I think, in the quiet of my own room, with the last embers of the fire softly crackling in the grate, that he would say to me, if he could, that it is time to go to sleep. So I shall.